Step 2 in market segmentation analysis is dedicated to thinking about what an ideal target segment might look like, in theory. We need to think about desirable characteristics of target segments at this early stage so we can make sure we collect the right data and we are in the position to select a good target segment at the end of the market segmentation analysis process. To enable this selection task, it's essential to agree on key characteristics of an ideal target segment. Some of these characteristics are quite generic, and we will discuss them later. But others are not generic, and this requires the organization to have a conversation. It's important to have this conversation in the early stages of the segmentation process. Importantly, possible key characteristics of the ideal target segment have to be identified before data is collected. If data on those specific characteristics is not collected, it's not available in step 8 for target segment selection. The general discussion about what matters to the organization in specifying the ideal market segment has to happen in step 2. It directly informs data collection in step 3. Then, later in the process, the criteria agreed upon in step 2 will also be used in step 8 when market segments resulting from the analysis are systematically compared and a subset is chosen for targeting. Segment evaluation criteria fall into one of two groups: knockout criteria and attractiveness criteria. Knockout criteria are the essential, non-negotiable features of market segments. If a market segment does not comply with the knockout criteria, it's eliminated. A segment that's eliminated is not evaluated using attractiveness criteria. Attractiveness criteria are not essential. They are characteristics of market segments which make them particularly attractive to the organization. Segments are assigned a value for each attractiveness criterion that matters to the organization. These values allow comparisons across different segments. Knockout criteria include homogeneity. This means that consumers allocated to the same market segment must be similar to one another. Distinctness. Consumers allocated to one segment must be markedly different from consumers allocated to another segment. Size. The market segment must be large enough to justify the effort of customizing product, pricing, distribution channels, and communication messages to them. Fit. The market segment must match the organization's strengths. The fit between the organization and the market segment must be good. Identifiability. It must be possible to spot the consumers who belong to the market segment in the marketplace. If we cannot spot them, we cannot target them. Reachability. There must be a way to get in touch with the consumers in the market segment. Again, if we cannot get in touch with them, they will never know that our product best satisfies their needs. With knockout criteria, segment evaluations are binary. Segments either comply or they don't. If they do not comply, they are removed from the set of segments assessed using attractiveness criteria. Attractiveness criteria are not binary. Segments are not classified as complying or not complying with attractiveness criteria. Rather, segments get a value indicating the extent to which each of the attractiveness criteria applies to them. There is also no set list of attractiveness criteria. Rather, users of the market segmentation solution have to identify which of the many possible attractiveness criteria matter to them. Users also need to determine how important each criterion is in relation to the others. Attractiveness criteria need to be weighted. This can be done by each person in the segmentation team by assigning, say, 100 points across the chosen criteria. The resulting distributions serve as a starting point for a conversation in the segmentation team, which ultimately leads to a joint weighting agreed upon by everyone. Here's a useful set of attractiveness criteria. Size and fit. We already know those criteria from the knockout list. Market segments which did not meet a certain threshold of size and fit were eliminated. But market segments still under consideration vary with respect to size and fit. Therefore, they also serve as useful attractiveness criteria. Growth. Market segments with higher growth potential are more attractive. Competition. What is the competitive situation in these market segments? Are the competitors targeting this segment? How strong is their position? Are there barriers to entry that stop our competitors? Segment saturation. Are there any gaps in marketing? Protectability. Can this market segment be protected? Can we patent products which cater to this segment particularly well to delay competition? Environmental risk. Do we expect external threats to this market segment, either economic, political, or technological in nature? Relationships with other segments. If we are targeting more than one segment, how would this market segment interact with others? Is there a risk of cannibalization? Profitability. How profitable is the market segment? How much will it cost us to start targeting it? What will the profit margins be? Importantly, this list and many other lists of segmentation attractiveness criteria are merely conversation starters. Ultimately, users decide which attractiveness criteria matter most to them and how they want to measure those segment characteristics and weigh them to reflect relative importance. Using a structured process increases the efficiency of organizations in terms of both selecting attractiveness criteria and using them later in step 8 to pick segments for targeting. In step 8, we will discuss one such structured approach that helps with target segment selection, the decision plot. In step 2, the segmentation team needs to study a number of criteria lists, discuss each criterion in terms of what it means, what its relevance is to the organization, and how it can be measured. Based on this conversation, the segmentation team needs to agree on the subset of criteria to use.